Welcome in to Cover Crimson. My name is EG. That is Clint Lamb, and we give you all of the inside scoop on Alabama football, and we love to do it. And we're excited for today. It is OU Bama week. A lot of storylines going into this game, a lot of feelings. We want to know yours as well. So leave us a comment about how you're feeling with this game. We're going to get into Clint's keys to the game. We do this every single week. We really enjoy it. And yeah, Clint, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How you feeling about this game, EG? You feeling confident? Alabama, I think, is a 6-point favorite. It started off as a 7-point line, so it's dropped a little bit. But
Yeah.
a lot of people, myself included, think that Oklahoma can give Alabama some trouble. But I also, in case anybody missed it, I have said that I think Alabama's going to win the football game. So just how you feeling about it? You nervous? You confident? Where you at?
It's a loaded question, Clint. I think that with this game, when you think about the implications of it, that naturally is going to cause a bit of a stir because there's a lot of football left to play before Alabama can accomplish the goals that they have set forth for themselves. November is no joke, and as the saying goes, everyone remembers what you do in November. But I think, as Coach DeBoer said on Monday, you'd be remiss. It's hard not to remember the past, and this time a year ago this game did give Alabama a lot of trouble. Now, granted, completely different makeup of a team. Obviously, that was on the road in Norman. So there are a few factors that play into this in Alabama's favor, of course. But I think that, this is yet again another test for Coach DeBoer, right? And I think that that's something that naturally, as you're thinking about what you want Alabama to accomplish, this is just the next step they have to get through. The 1-0 mentality is very real, and I've seen it firsthand. So I think that, I'm excited to see what this team comes out with on Saturday. I think that Oklahoma's defense is definitely something that you're going to have to contend with, especially with the defensive-minded coach like Coach Venables. And so seeing Ryan Grubb's prowess on display, I think will be really fun to see with the offense. And really what I'm looking for is I want to see Ty making the on-schedule throws. I want to see him doing the easy things really well because that's what he told us in post-game on Saturday. That's what he's going to be working on this week. Going back to the mechanics, not necessarily the scheme of things, because he said this time of year, it's easy to stray from the mechanics because you're so focused on learning the scheme at hand. So that's kind of my biggest thing is I want to see Ty kind of revert back to a couple weeks ago in terms of the rhythm, in terms of, how comfortable he looks. Now, again, as we're calling him, Clint, we still saw Sunday throws on Saturday. But just getting those easy things down, I think is what I'm going to be looking for.
Yes, not only Sunday throws, but Sunday, pre and post snap, seeing it, understanding what the defense is giving him, understanding where the weak spots are, and knowing where to go with the football. And then, of course, if they switch things up post snap, processing that information and then still being able to understand where he needs to go with the football. He just plays the game at such a high level. It makes sense given his background as a coach's son, but it also doesn't make any sense when you talk about his on-field Saturday experience and the fact that it's so limited. I mean, he's playing like a third, fourth, fifth year NFL veteran in just the way that he's seeing things. But I mean, granted, there still are some things that he's attempting to overcome. I have full confidence that he'll be able to get it fixed, like the vertical ball. I think he's trying to force it a little bit too much. He's so worried about getting it there in a place where the receiver can catch it that he's thinking about that too much. Just air it out. Just throw. You know how to throw the vertical ball. Go ahead.
And I think that that's something that this weekend we may see a lot of, considering what OU offers in their secondary. They are a handsy bunch. I'm just going to say that. And I was on with our friends at Inside Texas last night, and Chris Marler was on, who we love. And, he was really putting that case forth that this is a time where Alabama can kind of test that group and see if they can force a flag, because their secondary, there's a lot that they can take advantage of, especially with the receiver core that Bama does have. So, I don't think it's going to be the game that we see the run game come to life. I think you'd be hard pressed to think that, but I do think this will be an opportunity just to kind of work on that, element of Ty's game.
Yeah, and I think that they, it's something that they worked on in the bye week. It's just the vertical passing game is a lot closer, in my opinion, than the run game.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
So, I definitely think at any point that can click. And granted, I completely agree with your analysis that this is the type of week where the vertical passing game can get going a little bit more than you've seen. This is, if Alabama goes out there and they run the football effectively, at all against Oklahoma's defense that is really good at stopping the run,
Huge.
that is going to be a massive step in the right direction. That's
Yeah.
just not, it doesn't have to even look great. If they can even fairly consistently churn out, 4 or 5 yard runs, maybe pop them for an 8 or a 9 every once in a
Mhm.
while. Like, I think that will first, you'll look at what they changed and try to see if that's something that is sustainable. But at the same time, with just the way that those two, their run defense, Alabama's rushing offense, the way that they've looked so far this season, I don't foresee that. So that's something to,
Yeah.
not necessarily keep an eye on, but understand going into the game.
Well, and I think we're gonna shout out our other friend, Josh Pate. This is his mug, Pate State. This is from their wedding back in May. What a great party gift, like favor,
Right.
because we
Yeah.
used it. Anyways, I
Yeah.
say all that. Also, like the subtle flex of like, oh, the Pate State wedding. Anyways, but he was talking about how on his show, you mentioned that comparison of the run game defense compared to Alabama's run game, and everyone's kind of pointing to that stat. And he made the point of that would be concerning if Alabama relied on the run. They
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. That's
They
right. That's what
don't.
Jimmy said the same thing yesterday, and I completely agree with that. That makes sense. Like, you're not taking away anything from Alabama. I made the joke yesterday. You think you can stop our run better than we can stop our run? Have you watched us this year? Because Alabama, a lot of that, it's good defensive play. You don't want to take away from opposing defenses. I think a lot of it has been an Alabama issue, and just
Mhm.
trying to get a fit with the offensive linemen and what certain guys do well versus what other guys do well. Tight end, haven't really had Danny Lewis available. I think that's impacted things. The running backs, aren't always seeing it like they need to, or they need to be more aggressive, which, I understand there's a time for patience, but there's a time for aggressiveness too. And this year, I think Jam Miller in particular has been a little bit too patient, trying to let his block set up. But yeah, I do think that it's still possible that
Mhm.
Alabama, they're going to continue to try to get it fixed. They're not going to, they might abandon it this week just because of the matchup and they understand going in. Not saying they won't try to run the football at all, but they'll understand. I mean, we're probably based off of, all season, we're probably not going to run the football very well against Oklahoma. The good part about it is, as Josh and Jimmy have both said, that's an area where Alabama's comfortable. Like, they've
Yeah,
lived in that,
right.
that approach all season.
Yeah, so I think that's one of those things that's been the stat that's thrown around a lot, and, I think it being in Bryant-Denny really helps. I asked Coach Ellis yesterday, I was able to sit down with him, and for some reason, I haven't really asked coaches this, and I don't know why I decided to yesterday, but it just kinda came to me. But I asked him about the environment of Bryant-Denny so far this season, and I think that's something that it's always interesting to hear, and he was saying how in his, 14 years of coaching, he's been into a lot of cool places. He's been to a lot of cool matchups, coached in those, like USC, Notre Dame, and he said, "There is nothing like Bryant-Denny Stadium. Nothing." And he said, "Hearing Dixieland Delight in the fourth quarter is one of the coolest things ever, but the advantage that Bryant-Denny offers is incredible, especially to an opposing offense." And so, and he was talking about how, when they get out there, when they're on the road, it affects things. You can't hear as well, etc. And so he was like, it's really great to know that 6 or 7 times a year, other teams have to come to our place and experience it to such a high level. And you heard Coach DeBoer this week on Hey Coach saying, I often ask more of my players. I'm going to ask more of the fans. Like, you can be louder, show up. And so I'm expecting a really rowdy environment because there's a revenge factor to this game that Alabama's dealing with.
Yeah, I brought up with Jimmy, Oklahoma spoiled Alabama's playoff chances last year.
Yep.
This is a chance for Alabama to spoil Oklahoma's playoff chances this year, because
Yeah.
Alabama can technically lose this football game and still, if they can beat Auburn, which you would hate to put
You hate
all
to
the
be in that
eggs.
position.
Yeah, but you still have a chance.
Right.
If Oklahoma loses this game, I mean, I guess theoretically there would still be an outside chance, but I think you all but in their playoff chances, just like you did. Like, Alabama wasn't completely out of it last year. In fact, they almost got in.
Yeah.
But I mean, that Oklahoma game kind of was the final nail in the coffin. Alabama can act as that this year for Oklahoma and give a little payback.
Absolutely. And I think when you look at OU's schedule too, because what their 2 losses came earlier in the season. And if, Bama is obviously the first loss, but Bama does not want to be in a position where you're losing this game, simply put. I mean, that's just not, there's a lot of narratives and storylines that just, you don't want that to be one of them coming off of this week. And so I think that that's a great point. And I think last year, what I remember so much about this game, and this is not the case this year, and this is from a media standpoint, not from a team or coach standpoint. I just remember, leading up to the OU game, the constant narrative was, it wasn't even a narrative. It was, oh yeah, they had to go to Norman, but they'll be back. Like, go to Norman, take care of business. Alabama's in control of their own destiny.
It was a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. I mean, there was no discussion about it. And I think that this season, what I've really seen, now going back to players and coaches, is that 1-0 mentality. As fans probably get so annoyed hearing the same things over and over again from players, from coaches, but it's psychology. If you're constantly saying it, you're going to believe it.
Right.
And the 1-0 mentality, it works. It makes sense. You don't want to overlook an opponent. You don't want to be thinking about who you have in 2 weeks, who you have in 3 weeks, who you have in a month, if all goes as planned. And so if you're so laser focused on the task at hand that you are not even paying attention to outside noise, that's what you want. Again, as a fan, I'm sure it gets so old hearing the same, 3 or 4 or 5 phrases. But again, it's one of those things where that's what you want to be hearing this time of year.
Yeah, and I think that this team, I mean, it's just a matter of keeping the momentum going.
Yeah.
It's like I said, the last thing you want to do is drop this game, because then you put yourself in a position where Auburn can now say, if we beat them, we get to play spoiler. Our season has sucked all year. We've hated every minute of it.
Interim coach.
Right. But we can go out there and we can ruin Alabama's hopes and dreams. And this state can stay quiet for the next however many months until next football season starts. And we've talked ourselves into us being good again, like they do pretty much every offseason nowadays. That's it, you don't want to put that hope out there. So if you handle business this weekend, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's 100%, but it's very likely you're going to the SEC championship. And if you go to the SEC championship, whether you win or lose, even if you lose to Auburn and you lose in the SEC championship, it's still very possible that you get into the college football playoff. Auburn can't spoil your chances at that point. So any sort of hope at that, the only thing is they would get bragging rights if they beat you. But then, of course, if you go on and you make the playoffs and you make a run, maybe you win a national championship. I mean, that's happened in the past. Alabama's lost to Auburn before and then gone on to win a national championship. How much does that loss sting, in those situations? Not very much. Yeah. So it's very important that Alabama continues the momentum that they've been building since that Florida State loss. And, has it always looked pretty? Absolutely not. A lot of close games. Didn't look great on offense the last couple of weeks all the time, but they have figured out ways to win, figure out a way to win this weekend against Oklahoma.
And what I want to say to that too, Clint, is, Bama has received some criticism for the games that they're winning, right? So it's, you look at South Carolina, you look at, the early minutes of the Vandy game, and some of these wins have been gutted out. Missouri, Texas A&M is kind of in that same boat. If we're not, if we're going to hold the flame to Bama, you have to look at Texas A&M as well. And I do think they have one of those complete offensive outputs right now. But Auburn, what was the final score of that? 16-10, I want to say.
Yeah, it was bad.
They had a close game against Arkansas, 3-point game against Arkansas. And so I think that what it shows more is the parity of the SEC at this point. You don't have these, gaps anymore. Even Mississippi State, like the way that they're playing, they've been in every single game that they've been a part of, every loss, unfortunately. But I think as many times as people point out that for Bama, that the games that they're winning, they're not pretty wins. Okay, that's fine. It still goes in the same column. But also let's look at Texas A&M as well. And again, I go back to, I do think Texas A&M is very good this time of year, though. I'm a little nervous for them. I have no dog in that fight, obviously, but the curse of Texas A&M usually seems to shine this time of year. But with that being said, I just think that Bama, I think it's a little undue criticism for the way they're winning games, because at the end of the day, they're winning the game.
That's right. And ultimately that's what it's all about. As long as you can scale it based off of opponent. Like Oklahoma is a better football team than LSU. So if you can go out there, just figure out a way to beat them, because it doesn't, since the FSU game, it didn't matter the quality of opponent. I mean, they played 4 straight top 25 teams, top 20 teams. They beat all 4 of them. They went to Athens, Georgia, and beat a top 5 Georgia squad. But at the same time, when they played the South Carolinas or the LSUs, their play has kind of matched their opponent. As long as you continue to figure out ways to win those games, all great. It's just you can be playing with fire when you do that, because 1 or 2 things doesn't break your way. some unfortunate late turnover or something,
Yeah.
you can end up dropping a game that you really shouldn't have because you are playing with fire. But at the same time, until they do drop that game that they probably shouldn't lose based off of something like that happening and quote unquote playing with their food instead of putting teams away, until that happens, you've got to give them credit for the fact that they haven't slipped up and allowed that to happen up to this point. So there's like a balance there of understanding you can't keep doing it every week, but I will give you a lot of credit because you've played with fire each and every week for a while now, and every single week you come figure out a way to come out on top. There's something to be said about that ability as well. And to me, now granted, it doesn't always work out this way, but the more battle tested these SEC teams are, Texas A&M having to figure out a way to grit out some wins, Alabama, same situation, Georgia, same situation. Hopefully that starts to pay off when you're in the playoffs and you're trying. I mean, if you're Indiana, and granted, I'm not saying they haven't played any close games, but you're used to just handling business and no one really hits you back too much. When someone does go out there and hit you back, how do you respond? I think having that experience and a lot of that experience can be beneficial.
I have actually told you my story with Curt Cignetti.
No.
Okay. So we're also like 16 minutes into this and we haven't even talked about your keys, but I feel like they're just all blending together. But so when I was covering Georgia Southern, I was our sideline reporter. So I was a little baby out there and it was still the coolest thing because it was Clay Helton's first season. At the time, Curt Cignetti was at JMU and they were 25 in the nation. So this 2022. And so they come to Statesboro. And I remember, this is so funny. I can't believe I haven't told you this, Clint. So I remember preparing for this game. And so when you're the sideline reporter, when you're the broadcast crew, so this weekend, ahead of time, that crew and the sideline reporter, like Molly, they're meeting with coaches and players this week to get all of the good inside stories, et cetera. I know most of you guys know that, but some of you may not. So when you're looking at a graphic on the broadcast and it's like, whoa, this is so timely. Well, it's because they talked to a coach, talked to a player, they built it, and then it pops and you're able to, flash it and it's a whole good thing. We could talk an entire show about like broadcast mechanics and like what you guys should look for on a broadcast because it's addicting once you like kind of learn it. And so I remember starting to research Curt Cignetti and the sheer factor that he was in Nick Saban's coaching tree terrified me. Terrified me because I'm sitting here thinking I'm 20 years old and I'm the sideline reporter and I have to talk to a guy that coached under Nick Saban. Little did I know I'd go on to cover Nick Saban, his eventual retirement, and now Kalen DeBoer. But I remember the game went into overtime. And like I said, JMU was 25. And I remember being so nervous. And this guy, he was straight-laced. Like he was a little Nick Saban in him. He was on the meetings and things like that. He wasn't super warm, if you will. And coaches don't have to be warm. I'm not saying that, but very intimidating. And I remember sitting on the sidelines thinking, if JMU wins, he's going to be pissed off because this is not a game that they should have played this close considering they're 25 in the nation. And I remember sitting there, Clint, being so nervous. And it was such a back and forth thing. Like I didn't know which way it was going to go. And I am praying, like, Lord, I do not want to have to do a post-game interview with this man. He is going to be so mad that it even came down to this. It is overtime. Georgia Southern, I love Georgia Southern. I'm a product of Georgia Southern, but they should not even be in this game right now. And I'm going to have to go find him on the field, and he's going to be pissed off. And I don't even know what I'm going to say to him. Luckily, Georgia Southern won, and I get the incredible post-game interview with Kyle Van Treese. And I remember that was my first and last interaction with Curt Cignetti. It was the half. His Georgia Southern was up at the half too, which was crazy. And even talking to him off camera, he was so frustrated. And so every time I see Indiana, I'm like, man, my past. Little did we know that he'd end up at Indiana. I'm at Bama, and the rest is history.
I will say, William Ming, who was my best friend in high school, he was recruited by Alabama and was a highly rated 4-star recruit, Rivals top 250 guy. But his primary recruiter was Curt Cignetti. So
Really?
Cignetti was always coming to the field house, at Athens and stuff to visit with William. And so, I mean, I knew a little bit, I talked to him a little bit. He's a different bird. He's different. And I know that William was a huge fan, loves him to this day. But I know a couple of players, a couple of Williams teammates that weren't exactly the biggest fans of him. They just
Funny.
rubbed each other the wrong way
Yeah.
as far as personalities, and that's going to happen. But they did not have not said kind of things about him. Avoided him on the sidelines. Didn't like. I don't know. It was. I'm not going to get too much into it, but it's just funny because when I hear that, that was my exposure to Cignetti even before he got to Indiana, way before. And so when he got there, started having a little bit of success. I'm like, man, just based off of the things that I'd heard about him, I mean, it wasn't anything like from a coaching standpoint. I was just like,
personality.
you just wouldn't think that his players would absolutely love playing for him. Like, but everywhere he's been, he's done pretty well. So you got to give him a lot of credit for that.
I agree.
I was shocked, but it's some people just have a different personality and they do rub people the wrong way. But he, I guess this guy's got a lot of respect for him.
I was so intimidated by him. And like I said, little did I know that I'd actually go on to have to speak to Nick Saban in a press conference. But
yeah, you were fine and didn't even know it.
I was fine. But literally, it's just so funny how, like, when I saw that on the game notes, like in the Nick Saban coaching tree, I was like, I cannot screw this up. But all that to say, a little fun, story for you guys. Do you have any other keys? I feel like we've talked about so much. Like,
well, I think number one, win the turnover battle.
Yep.
Oklahoma has not done a great job as far as generating turnovers. Alabama's done a really good job of avoiding them. Last year, you got to think about what happened in Norman.
Oh, yeah.
Alabama lost the turnover battle. Jalen Milroe had 3 turnovers. I think, Oklahoma might have only had 1, if I'm mistaken, early in the game. I think it might have been the first drive of the game. Once they crossed the 50, I think Bray Hubbard might have forced a fumble. Other than that, I don't remember a turnover. I just know that they lost the turnover battle in that game. You got to win it here because Mateer will throw you the football. He will test windows that he shouldn't test. You can confuse him with pre and post snap, changing up the looks. And I think you can apply pressure on him through Alabama's increased pass rush production and the fact that Oklahoma's offensive line has not been great as far as pass protection. So that's kind of where, win the turnover battle, make sure that happens. Mateer, I think in his first game against Illinois State, he threw 3 touchdowns. He had 1 interception and no fumbles. Plus he had a rushing touchdown. But in the 7 games since, he has had 5 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions, so more interceptions than touchdowns. He has added 5 more rushing touchdowns, so give him credit for that.
Yeah.
But he's also had another fumble. So 7 turnovers in his last 7 games after starting with just 1, I guess, in the first. You can turn him over.
Absolutely.
I definitely need to do that. Also, stop the run. I think that is very important. Xavier Robinson, the last 3 games, 200 and roughly 82 rushing yards, I believe. He's totaled over 300 yards in the last 3 games. He's scored 4 total touchdowns. He's done extremely well as far as yards per carry and yards per catch, averaging over 7.6 yards per carry, I believe. Have to be able to slow him down because if they can get their run game going with him and with Mateer's legs, that's going to open up the passing game. Those are the 2 biggest things for me. And then the third was mutual protection. It's your offensive line protecting Ty. And as Ty has done many times so far this season, it's Ty protecting his offensive line. His ability to process information quickly and get the football out. Has he hung on to the football for too long at times when it wasn't there? Yes, needs to avoid that to protect his offensive line. Continue to get the football out quickly, know what you're seeing, trust what you're seeing, be aggressive. If he can do that, then I think Alabama's got a real chance to win this football game. And I can even see some scenarios where they win it pretty handedly, but my final score was also 24-17, Alabama winning. So I didn't have even Alabama covering. I want to be upfront about that, but I can see scenarios where Alabama can win by more than that if they can do some of those things that I was talking about.
Yeah, I think those are great points. And, when it comes to the offense and defense, really, I think that from my vantage point, and I want to talk about the defense, keep doing what you've been doing well. I think that's a big part of it. And you talk about winning the turnover battle. The defense has been so impressive, especially in red zone situations and scenarios, which OU is going to get down there just based off what they do on offense. But I think that, when you have a defense that has been so lights out in that facet, keep doing it. And you have, guys that are just, it's been really fun to watch how the defense has evolved, especially from week 1 until now, because last season, the defense took a lot of criticism. And yet towards the start of the season, it seemed like that may be par for the course, but it has not been the case. And I think that you've seen guys step up like Yanze Pierre. we've got to continuously talk about him. And I was talking with C-Rob yesterday, and he was talking about how he was the 4th string guy last year, and now look what he's doing.
That's right.
It's really impressive. And so, guys like him, Bray Hubbard, continuing to just fly around and be the player that he's been. Xavier Brown, like, keep the defense doing what it's been doing well. And offensively, and I go back to what we talked about at the beginning of this, just have Ty do the easy things really well. And I think that you're going to see success. And I also, too, I want to talk about the tight ends. I don't think we've talked enough about Caleb Edwards, in my opinion. True freshman, that he came in June. And in his first game against FSU, I think he played 25 snaps, and he got there in June from California. He has been able to do, some pretty impressive things, him and Josh Cuevas. And I think that, that's kind of an underrated element of this offense. I feel like I say that every week, that the tight end, package is underrated, but I think it is. And I don't know. I mean, is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting, and last year it was so run heavy as far as your tight ends. They offered a little bit in the passing game, but not a whole lot. More of a sneaky element, where it's like, hey, if you want to cover some of these receivers and what we're doing from that front, or you put too much focus on the run game, particularly Jalen Milroe's legs, these tight ends, they can bust you. But otherwise, as far as creating consistent separation, doing things after the catch, you just didn't see nothing from the tight ends on that front. They were there to block on the perimeter, on the edges. This year, more receiving based, because Caleb Edwards, I still think, is growing as a blocker. He's having some trouble sustaining blocks. Josh Cuevas is a pass first or a catch first tight end. So, I mean, at the same time, though, they are a big element. Josh Cuevas has been absolutely amazing. Caleb Edwards, that's a great point about him enrolling, in the summer. Like, it wasn't like he had a spring to acclimate. He had a fall camp, just a couple of weeks to get acclimated to playing major SEC football. And then first week of the season, hey, go out there and go against, at the time, or what has continued to be a pretty decent Florida State defense. Not only that, everybody around you, all these veterans who have been here, whether it be in the spring, whether it's been multiple years, they're all going to struggle. So, go out there and good luck to you. He held up pretty decently. He's had some up and down play, but I still think the fact that you saw that right out the gate, that tells you what this coaching staff thinks of Caleb Edwards. And I think he's going to end up being a really, really good player down the line. But something else that you mentioned that I think is really a great point. I mean, how many guys have stepped up this year on defense? You lose Quay Russaw, that feels like a major loss. You have Yanze Pierre step up and really be a presence and really emerge as a game wrecker for the defense. You talk about, if you'd have told me going into the season, Damani Jackson is going to kind of struggle this year. Granted, I still would have felt good about that depth because of Dijon Lee, because of Cam Calhoun, and what we thought about both of those guys going in. But the fact that Dijon Lee has stepped up and really provided a good, strong presence opposite Xavier Brown, where that was not as much of a catastrophic development as it would have been. You talk about Jeremiah Beeman, your number 2 nose tackle, who you expected to be a massive part of your rotation. We said going into the season, you've got 4 guys that you can really trust, and Jeremiah Beeman's one of them. You can't afford to lose any of these guys. Not only did you lose Beeman for the year against Florida State, but you also started the season without Tim Keenan. What does London Simmons do? What does Isaiah Faga do? They step up, they get the job done, and London Simmons has been the one to fill that Jeremiah Beeman rotational nose role and has been very, very effective in it. Across the board, everybody has stepped up, and they've gotten the play on that side of the football when they've needed to, because some of these injuries, we just kind of, it feels very next man up, and that's always what we always like to say about it. It doesn't always work that way. It can be catastrophic when you lose some of these caliber of players. And yet Alabama has figured out a way to not only, maintain, but improve over the course of the season, and improve a lot from last season, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, Clint, this was great. This was fun. A great way to wrap up discussion on OU Bama. And now it's just time to get out there and play. Obviously, we're not suiting up, but I'm excited for this weekend. And we'll have post game for you guys out in 2:30 kick. So we can all settle in for Georgia, Texas at 6:30 is that game?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
We have a good weekend of college football ahead.
Right.
I'm excited. It's one of those weekends that I am kind of happy that Bama has an early game, because I'll be able to catch some of the later games. But I do wish that Bama had one more night game in Bryant-Denny. But it is what it is.
Hey, you never know.
That's
College
true.
football playoff.
Yeah.
It is, but now, granted, right now where Alabama's sitting, they get the first round bye, but
Yeah.
they end up dropping one of these games. Maybe, you just never know.
Never know.
Don't give up hope just yet. But yes,
Okay.
as far as regular season, if it is a night game in Bryant-Denny, by the time that rolls around, it's going to be very cold. So be sure to be ready to bundle up because you're on the sidelines.
I'm on the
So,
sidelines.
yeah, a lot of hot hands are in your future potentially.
Oh yeah, and guys, I posted on TikTok. I love the talk. I was like, I hate the cold. We had one day of cold this week, and it was after poker, and I'm like getting into my car. I'm freezing. It's like midnight. Didn't play well. Finished 7th. Not my best. Not my worst. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And it's getting colder. But do you know what I wear when I get cold, Clint? I think
What?
you know. I wear Rowback.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wear Rowback. And you can get 20% off. The Christmas time of year is coming. Let us know if you've already put up your Christmas tree. And you need to start shopping because Black Friday is coming up. And you can use the code COVER20 for 20% off your order. And I just feel like with this opportunity, guys, you don't often get 20% off. You might see 10% off. 20% off. That is a substantial amount that you take off your order. Clint has used it a lot. Multiple times. Here's a little inside baseball for you, okay? If you've already used the code, that's okay. Use a different email and you can use the code again.
Bingo. Don't tell them we said that, though.
Yeah, you did not hear that from us. We love Rowback.
Little insider information.
Yeah.
I cannot confirm nor deny that I've used said multiple emails.
Right.
So
take that with what you will.
I might even be calling them Rowback 1, Rowback 2.
Rowback 5.
Just creating new email accounts, and that way you continue to get the promo code.
Oh man,
this has been great though. Yeah.
Yes, we love you guys, and we're always asked how you guys can support us. So go to where you listen to your different podcasts, and all you have to do, guys, is you type in what do they need to search exactly though, Clint? What is that?
Cover Crimson Podcast Network.
Okay, so type that in. When you pull up your app, this is your phone. Click download. And then you're not going to miss an episode because what it'll do is it'll put it on your homepage. It'll put it, in your regular rotation. And then that helps us as well. So that's how you can help. And then also join us in post game. We have a live show. We're also starting live shows on Sundays, which has been really fun. This will be week 2 of that coming up. Me and Clint, we hang out with you guys live. We really enjoyed it last week. You can come in with your, post game debrief, basically, is what we're calling it. We've slept on it. We're able to be more rational the next day. We've looked at film, all of those things. So join us there. Is there anything else that we need them to know, Clint?
No, that's perfect. Yeah, we just appreciate all you guys for being here. Great conversation. Really looking forward to this weekend. It's another test for Alabama, another place that Alabama can really make a mark and really influence the college football playoff committee by getting a solid win over Oklahoma. Not going to be easy, but I definitely think that this team is more than capable, and I ultimately believe that they're going to figure out a way to get a win as well. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. We will talk to you guys soon.